Hello everyone, welcome back to another math video. Today we're going to be talking about how to factor expressions, so similar to this problem that you see up on the screen here. Just a reminder, this is the full lesson version, so we're going to go step by step with a bunch of examples. If you'd like the short version, where we just cover the main ideas pretty quickly, I will link that in the description below. Before attempting this lesson, you should already be familiar with the distributive property. If you'd like a refresher on that, I will link that in the description as well. All right, so for this problem, we need to factor it. And factoring this takes a couple steps. First off, let's look at the big numbers, 12 and 21. Maybe we know those are called the coefficients, right? The big numbers. And so we need to look at 12 and 21. And my favorite way to teach this is to make a factor table, right? So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you just check. 12 divided by 1 is 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And now you're actually done because you notice that you already have a 4 in the table. And so if you keep going, you would do 12 divided by 4 would give you 3, right? And you already have 3, 4, just reversed. Okay, so once you start to repeat, you're actually done. You don't need to do any more. Let's check 21. 21 divided by 21 is 21. 21 divided by 2 is a decimal, so we're not going to use the decimals. 21 divided by 3 is 7. 4 is a decimal, 5 is a decimal, 6 is a decimal, and 7 we already have on the table, so we are done. Now you look at these lists and you say, we're talking about greatest common factor here. What is the biggest number that is on both lists? Doesn't matter left or right. And so the biggest number that is on both lists is the 3, right? There's a 3 here and a 3 here. And so we're going to keep that in the back of our head. Okay, we know we're going to be using this 3. We know we're going to be using the 3. Now let's look at the variables, n to the 5th, n to the 4th. And the way that I like to show this is to line them up. So n to the 5th is 5 n's, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. N to the 4th is 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we need to pair them. So pair, 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 and pair. I should have labeled these. This is n to the 5th, n to the 4th. And now you'll notice that n to the 4th has no more pairs, right? You can't make another pair of 2. And so the greatest common factor for the variables is n to the 4th. All right, let's bring it all together here. We're going to put parentheses. What goes in the front of the parentheses is the greatest common factor. So that was 3. And for the variables, the greatest common factor was n to the 4th, right? Now, what's inside of the parentheses is what is left. Really, you're dividing if you want to think of it like that, but let's take a look here. So 12 divided by 3 leaves a 4, right? If you remember, there was the 4 in the table. And how many n's are left if we take 4 out? Well, there's only 1 n left on the inside. Now let's do the same for the 21 n to the 4th. You divide by 3, which, remember, that was the 7 that was left in the table. And remember, you took n to the 4th out of this. So how many are left if you started with n to the 4th? None, right? There are no n's left for that part. And so our final answer, we usually wouldn't write the 1, okay? This is our final answer. And remember, you can check this with the distributive property. If you distribute this back in, you should end up with how we started. So let's double check. 3n to the 4th times 4n to the 4th is 12n to the 5th. 3n to the 4th times -7 is -21n to the 4th. And you'll notice that's exactly what we started with. Okay, we're just factoring. We're just sort of rewriting. We're not taking stuff away or adding anything. You know, this is like 4 quarters and $1, right? 4 quarters is the same amount as $1. It might look different, but it's the same amount. Same thing here, right? We're just rewriting our original problem. All right, here's our cool clock for today, which means that it is time for you to practice what you just learned. Go ahead and pause the video and try these 2 problems on your own. And when you're ready, you can unpause the video and we'll check your answers. Okay, now that you've had time to work these problems, let's check your solutions. Okay, for the first problem here is the work. You should have ended up with 3r parentheses, 3r squared minus 2. And for the second problem, you should have gotten 6 parentheses m to the 3rd or 1m to the 3rd minus 1. There, a little tricky, you can't take a variable from the second 6. So The variables don't change, it's only the numbers that change. All right, now there's a little bit longer of a problem. The good news is we still apply the same rules, okay? And a little bit of a shortcut here, which would be always check for these big numbers, right? You've got 18, 27, 9, 45. My suggestion would be only factor the smallest number. So for example, I'm gonna look at the factors of 9, which would be 1 and 9, 2 is a decimal, 3 and 3, and we're repeating, so that's all the factors. And now you say which of these factors goes into all of the other 3, okay? So you can divide each one, right? 3 would work, but it's not the biggest. 9, actually, you can divide all of those by 9. So we know we're going to use the 9. And then for the variables, okay, same deal. Start with the lowest, because this one only has one y to give, right? So if we were to, line these up, the lowest exponent, which here is a 1, right, invisible 1, the lowest exponent on the variable is the one that's going to come to the front. So what I mean is, we know at the front of our parentheses is going to be the 9 that we just found, and it's going to be y to the first power, just y. And then what is still on the inside? Well, 18 divided by 9 is 2. We took one y into the front, so now we have y to the 9th. 27 divided by 9 is 3. We took one y, so we have y to the 6th. 9 divided by 9 is 1. We took one of the y's, so y to the 4th. And 45 divided by 9 is 5. We took the one y, so there are no y's left. So this is the final answer. All right, so some shortcuts there, sort of look for the lower numbers. All right, it's time to practice. Go ahead and pause the video and try these two on your own, and when you're ready, you can unpause and we'll check your answers. Okay, now that you've had time to work these problems, let's check your solutions. Okay, for the first problem here is the work, and you should have ended up with 13p to the second parentheses, 2p to the 8th plus 3p to the 3rd plus 1. And for the second problem, lowest number was 6, so I factored that. And then the lowest exponent on the variable was 7, so we're going to take an a to the 7th. And here's your final answer, 6a to the 7th parentheses 7a cubed minus a squared plus 3a minus 1. All right, for this last type of problem, okay, it looks complicated, but still we follow the same rules. So let's, again, look at what is the lowest coefficient. Lowest big number would be 16. Factors of 16, 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 3 gives you a decimal, 4 and 4, and we're repeating. And then out of that list, which one divides all 3 of those coefficients? It's 16. And now let's look at the variables. The lowest g is to the 5th, and the lowest h is h to the 3rd. So we're going to take 16 g to the 5th, h to the 3rd. That goes in the front. And now we divide. 16 divided by 16 is 1. We took 5 g's and 3 h's, so that leaves me with g to the 5th, just g to the 5th, minus 2. We took 5 g's, so that's g to the 4th. We took 3 h's, so no h's there. And finally, plus 16 divided by 16 is 1. We took 5 g's out, so no g's, and we took 3 h's, which leaves me with just an h. And this is our final answer. Again, if you want to check, you're more than welcome to distribute. All right, let's practice. Go ahead and pause the video and try these two on your own, and when you're ready, you can unpause the video and we'll check your answers. Okay, now that you've had time to work these problems, let's check your solutions. For the first problem, you should have gotten 14k to the 3rd mn squared, parentheses km to the 6th minus 1 for your final answer. And for the second problem, this is a bit of a trick problem because, first off, when you start with the lowest coefficient, 2, the only factors of 2 are 1 and 2, and 2 does not go in evenly to all of them, right? It won't go into 25, it won't go into 37, so we know 2 is not right, so only the 1 is a greatest common factor. But then you'll notice it has no variables, right? What's the lowest variable that all of them have? Well, this 2 at the very end has no variables whatsoever. And so this has no greatest common factor. You cannot factor this out. And so your answer is just the problem again, right? You can't change this. You can't factor this. So this is your answer, okay? A little bit of a trick question. All right, that is it for today. I hope you all have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.